The morning sun cast long shadows across the United Earth Defense Command building as Admiral Lisa Carter walked through the empty hallways. Her boots echoed against the metal floors, each step heavier than the last. Today would change everything. Ambassador Kyle Morrison waited in the main conference room, his face pale and drawn. He had just returned from the Coalition mothership, and the news he carried would shake humanity to its core. President Jack Sullivan sat at the head of the large table, his hands folded tightly as he stared at the holographic display showing Earth's solar system. "Tell me again," President Sullivan said quietly. "I want to hear every word they said." Kyle cleared his throat and activated his recording device. The voice that filled the room belonged to Admiral Thektar of the Vorthak Empire, speaking in perfect English through a translator. "Humans of Earth," the alien voice began, cold and commanding. "The Galactic Coalition has reached a final decision regarding your species. Your rapid expansion across the galaxy has become a threat to established order. Your technology advances too quickly. Your people adapt too easily to any environment. This cannot continue." Admiral Carter watched President Sullivan's jaw tighten as the recording continued. "Therefore, the Coalition demands the following. All human colonies beyond your home system must be abandoned within 1 standard galactic year. All human vessels must return to Earth space immediately. Your species will accept permanent oversight from Coalition peacekeepers. You will share all technological developments with the Coalition Council. These terms are not negotiable." The recording paused, then continued with the most chilling part. "You have 72 hours to accept these terms. If you refuse, the Coalition fleet will implement corrective measures. Resistance will be met with total suppression. This is your only warning." Kyle switched off the device and looked around the room. There are over 50,000 ships out there. Every major species in the galaxy has contributed to this fleet. The Vorthak, the Zalani, the Cormax Empire, all of them. President Sullivan stood slowly and walked to the window overlooking the city below. Millions of people went about their daily lives unaware that their freedom hung by a thread. "How long have we known this was coming?" he asked. Admiral Carter opened a secure file on her tablet. "Our intelligence services intercepted Coalition communications about the human problem 53 years ago. We've been preparing ever since." "Preparing how?" "Operation Last Stand," Carter replied. "Every colony, every research station, every mining outpost we've built in the last 50 years has been constructed with this moment in mind. We knew they would come for us eventually." Kyle Morrison looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "Our colonies are civilian settlements, scientists, farmers, families. How could they possibly stand against a Coalition fleet?" Admiral Carter smiled grimly. "That's exactly what we wanted everyone to think." She activated the room's main display showing a map of human space. Red dots marked 47 different star systems where humans had established settlements. Dr. Alan Rogers and his team have spent decades developing something the galaxy has never seen before. Every human colony sits on top of massive gravitational manipulation devices disguised as terraforming equipment. The Coalition thinks we've been peacefully expanding. They have no idea what we've really been building. President Sullivan turned back to the room. "And our people? The families living on those worlds?" "Every human who wanted to survive was given a choice," Carter explained. "Most chose to evacuate through our deep space network months ago. Those who remained, they volunteered to stay for the final phase." Kyle's face went white. "You're talking about using our own people as bait." "I'm talking about survival," Carter shot back. "The Coalition made their intentions clear years ago. They want to cage us, control us, turn us into pets. That's not happening." The room fell silent as the weight of the situation settled over them. Outside, life continued normally. But inside this room, 3 people held the fate of humanity in their hands. President Sullivan returned to his seat. "What about Captain Ryan Blake and the Retribution?" "Already in position," Carter confirmed. "He has his sealed orders. The moment the Coalition makes their move, Operation Last Stand begins." A communications officer entered the room and saluted. "Sir, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the Coalition fleet. They're positioning ships around every planet in our solar system. Admiral Thektar is requesting your response to their ultimatum." President Sullivan looked at Admiral Carter, then at Kyle Morrison. "Gentlemen, we've spent 50 years preparing for this moment. Our ancestors fought for freedom on Earth. Today we fight for freedom among the stars. He activated the communication system. This is President Jack Sullivan of United Earth. Put me through to Admiral Thektar. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the Coalition flagship. Admiral Thektar appeared, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been amusement. Behind him, representatives from a dozen other species watched with cold satisfaction. President Sullivan, Thektar hissed, have you reached a decision regarding our generous terms? We have, Sullivan replied calmly. Earth's answer is no. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not accept your oversight, and we will not surrender our freedom. Thektar's eyes narrowed. Then you choose extinction, very well. You have shown us that humans cannot be reasoned with. The galaxy will be safer without your chaotic influence. Perhaps, Sullivan said quietly. But Admiral, there's something you should know about humans. We've never been very good at knowing when we're beaten. The communication ended, leaving the room in darkness except for the glow of the tactical displays. Outside, the Coalition fleet began moving into attack positions. Admiral Carter picked up her secure communicator. This is Admiral Carter to all stations. Operation Last Stand is now active. God help us all. As she spoke those words, Captain Ryan Blake aboard the EDS Retribution opened his sealed orders and began reading. His face grew pale as he understood what was being asked of him and every other human in the fleet. The Coalition ships filled the space around Earth like a metal storm, their weapons charging for what they believed would be an easy victory. They had no way of knowing that humanity's greatest strength had always been turning apparent defeat into devastating victory. The war was about to begin, but it would not be the war anyone expected. The first shots of the war came at dawn. Captain Nina Foster watched from the command deck of Mars Station as Coalition ships dropped out of hyperspace like angry hornets. The red planet's thin atmosphere glowed with the heat trails of incoming missiles, and Nina knew her station wouldn't last more than a few hours. All defensive batteries. Open fire, she ordered, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. Make them work for it. The station's weapons blazed to life, sending streams of plasma toward the approaching enemy fleet. A few Coalition ships took hits, their shields flaring bright blue before returning to normal. It was like throwing rocks at a mountain. Admiral Thektar observed the battle from his flagship, the massive dreadnought Galactic Peace. His reptilian features showed satisfaction as human defenses crumbled one by one. Humans fight with courage, admitted his tactical officer, a four-armed Zalani named Kextar, but courage means nothing against superior numbers. Indeed, Thektar agreed. Their resistance is token at best. Mars Station will fall within the hour, and then we move on Earth itself. What the Coalition didn't know was that Dr. Alan Rogers sat in a hidden bunker beneath Luna Base, watching the same battle on his screens. His fingers moved across holographic controls that had been 50 years in the making. Phase 1 is working perfectly, he reported to Admiral Carter through an encrypted channel. They're taking the bait exactly as we hoped. On Mars Station, Captain Foster received a coded transmission. Her orders were simple but heartbreaking. Make the defeat look real, then evacuate to the emergency pods. The station was about to serve its true purpose. All hands, abandon ship, she announced over the intercom. This is not a drill. Proceed to evacuation pods immediately. The Coalition fleet watched as small escape pods launched from the dying station. Admiral Thektar smiled, believing he was witnessing humanity's first major defeat. He ordered his ships to capture the pods, planning to use the survivors for intelligence. Colonel Beth Williams supervised a very different kind of evacuation from her command ship hidden in the asteroid belt. For months, seemingly routine transport vessels had been moving human civilians from colonies across the galaxy. The Coalition had intercepted some of these transmissions and assumed they were watching panic. Evacuations, they were wrong. Transport. Group 7 is clear of the Centauri system, reported her communications officer. All civilian families are aboard the deep space vessels. Good, Colonel Williams replied. What about the volunteers who stayed behind? All stations report ready. The skeleton crews know their jobs, Beth nodded grimly. Every human colony now held only essential personnel, scientists, engineers, and brave volunteers who had chosen to stay for the final phase of Operation Last Stand. They all knew they probably wouldn't survive what was coming. Meanwhile, the Coalition continued their systematic attack on human space. They moved from system to system, overwhelming what appeared to be desperate but poorly coordinated resistance. Human ships fled in apparent panic, abandoning their positions as soon as the enemy arrived. Captain Steve Parker commanded one of these fleeing vessels, the cargo ship New Horizon. His orders were to run from every fight, to look defeated and scared. It was the hardest acting job of his life. "Coalition ships are pursuing us out of the Ross system," his navigator reported. "Should we jump to hyperspace?" "Not yet," Steve replied. "Let them get closer. We need them to think we're barely escaping." The coalition ships fired warning shots and Steve's vessel shuddered under minor hits. Finally, his ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving the enemy with the impression of another human defeat. Dr. Rogers continued monitoring the Grand Deception from Luna Base. Hidden quantum entanglement networks connected every human outpost, allowing instant communication across thousands of light years. But these networks weren't just for talking. Dr. Rogers called his assistant, Maria Santos. "The gravitational field generators are responding perfectly. All 47 systems are synchronized and ready." "Excellent," Rogers replied. "How long until the Coalition realizes what we've built?" "They won't," Maria said confidently. "Our terraforming equipment looks completely normal from the outside. Even detailed scans won't reveal the gravitational manipulation cores hidden underneath." The Coalition's confidence grew with each easy victory. Admiral Thektar sent regular reports to the Coalition Council, describing human resistance as spirited but futile. "The humans fight like cornered animals," he reported during one transmission. "They show no strategic thinking, no coordination. Each colony fights alone and falls alone. Earth will surrender within days." Back on Earth, President Jack Sullivan sat in the underground command bunker, watching feeds from across human space. Cities burned on a dozen worlds as Coalition forces established control. It was heartbreaking to watch, even knowing it was all part of the plan. "The hardest part," he said to Admiral Carter, "is letting them think they're winning." "Our people knew what they were signing up for," Carter replied. "Everyone who stayed behind volunteered for this mission. They're heroes, every one of them." The Coalition forces began landing troops on human worlds, establishing occupation zones and processing centers for human prisoners. They found families, scientists, and workers, all seemingly normal colonists who had been caught in the invasion. These humans appeared defeated and scared, exactly what the Coalition expected. The aliens had no way of knowing that every single person they captured had been carefully selected and trained for this role. Captain Ryan Blake watched the proceedings from his hidden position in deep space. The EDS Retribution and the rest of the human fleet remained invisible, waiting for their moment. His sealed orders contained timing sequences that would coordinate with Dr. Rogers' gravitational network. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "Coalition forces have occupied 38 of our 47 colonies. They're moving faster than we expected." "Good," Blake replied. "The faster they spread out, the better our plan works." On Luna Base, Dr. Rogers made final preparations for the next phase. The gravitational manipulation devices hidden beneath each human colony were charged and ready. 50 years of secret construction, disguised as peaceful terraforming, was about to pay off in the most devastating way possible. "Maria," he called to his assistant, "send the coded signal to Admiral Carter. Tell her we're ready for Phase 2. The message was simple. The trap is set. Admiral Thektar stood on his bridge watching as the last human strongholds fell to his overwhelming force. In his mind, the war was already over. Humanity had been crushed and the galaxy was safe from their chaotic influence. He had no idea that the real war was about to begin. The moment Earth began to burn, Admiral Lisa Carter activated humanity's final message to the galaxy. Her command ship, the Last Hope, hung in dark space between star systems, invisible to Coalition sensors. Around her, the bridge crew worked in grim silence as they prepared to reveal the truth that would shake the galaxy to its core. "Broadcasting on all frequencies," reported Communications Officer Danny Miller. "Every species in the galaxy will hear this." Carter stepped forward, facing the camera that would carry her words across thousands of light years. Behind her, screens showed Coalition ships bombarding Earth's major cities, reducing humanity's homeworld to ash and fire. "To all species of the Galactic Coalition," she began, her voice calm despite the destruction playing out behind her. "You wanted this war. You demanded our surrender. You chose to attack peaceful colonies and murder innocent families. Today you learn what happens when you force humanity to show you what we're really capable of. On the Coalition flagship, Admiral Thektar laughed as he watched the transmission. Brave words from a defeated species. What can you possibly do to us now? Carter continued speaking, and her next words wiped the smile from Thektar's face. Every human you wanted to save was evacuated months ago through networks you never detected. Those you're killing on our worlds, they stayed behind voluntarily for this moment. They're heroes, and their sacrifice is about to save our species while destroying yours. In his hidden bunker on Luna Base, Dr. Alan Rogers initiated the sequence that 50 years of preparation had built toward. His fingers moved across controls connected to gravitational manipulation, devices buried beneath 47 human colonies across the galaxy. Gravitational field generators are online, he reported, to Admiral Carter through quantum entanglement communicators, all systems synchronized. Beginning collapse sequence. The first sign something was wrong came from the Coalition forces occupying the human colony on Kepler 442b. The ground began to shake, and their instruments detected massive gravitational anomalies deep beneath the surface. What's happening? Demanded the Coalition commander on the planet's surface. His science officer, a Cormax engineer, studied the readings with growing alarm. Sir, the gravitational field is increasing exponentially. The terraforming equipment the humans built. It's not terraforming equipment at all. Captain Steve Parker watched from his supposedly fleeing vessel as the truth was revealed. The New Horizon was actually a heavily modified observer ship designed to record what came next. On Kepler 442b, the gravitational field reached critical mass. The planet's surface began collapsing inward as the hidden device created an artificial black hole. Coalition ships in orbit tried to escape, but the gravitational pull was too strong. Impossible, whispered Admiral Thektar as he watched the feeds from 47 different star systems. In each one, human colonies were collapsing into black holes, taking Coalition occupation forces with them. Dr. Rogers spoke into his communicator, his voice heavy with the weight of what he'd created. The devices were never meant for terraforming. We built the largest weapon network in galactic history, disguised as peaceful expansion. Every colony, every research station, every outpost you thought was harmless. They were all gravitational bombs waiting for this moment. The artificial black holes didn't stop with the planets. They grew, consuming Coalition ships, space stations, and anything else caught in their expanding gravitational fields. Worse, the gravitational waves they generated began affecting neighboring star systems. Commander Maria Santos, now aboard her own hidden vessel, coordinated the evacuation of human survivors from the chaos zones. All refugee fleets are clear of the affected systems, she reported. The real human population is safe in deep space. Admiral Thektar realized the scope of humanity's deception as reports flooded in from across Coalition space. Trade routes that passed through former human territory were being disrupted by gravitational anomalies. Communication networks were failing as relay stations fell into the expanding black holes. They turned their own genocide into a trap, he said in horror. Every world we conquered was bait, and we took it all. Admiral Carter's broadcast continued, her voice carrying across the galaxy as the Coalition's confidence crumbled. You thought we were weak because we preferred peace. You mistook our patience for cowardice. For 50 years we knew this day would come. We prepared for it while pretending to be harmless colonists and farmers. The gravitational chaos spread faster than anyone expected. Coalition supply lines that depended on routes through human space were severed. Critical infrastructure built near human settlements was consumed by the artificial black holes. Captain Ryan Blake received new orders from Admiral Carter as the plan entered its next phase. All ships prepare for Phase 3. The Coalition is reeling, but we're not done yet. On the Coalition flagship, Admiral Thektar watched his empire begin to crumble in real time. Member species were already blaming each other for the disaster, and several were withdrawing their fleets from the invasion force. How many ships have we lost? He asked his tactical officer. Over 15,000, sir. And the gravitational disruptions are affecting our home systems. The Vorthak Empire is reporting severe supply shortages. Dr. Rogers monitored the cascade effects from his control center. The artificial black holes are stable and growing as predicted. Gravitational waves are disrupting Coalition space across 12 sectors. But the worst was yet to come. As Admiral Carter prepared to reveal the next phase of humanity's plan, Coalition intelligence officers made a terrifying discovery. "Sir," reported a Zilani analyst, "we've been monitoring human refugee movements for months. The patterns don't match panic evacuations. They're too organized, too precise." Admiral Thektar demanded an explanation. The humans didn't just evacuate their people randomly. They moved specific populations to predetermined locations throughout the galaxy. "Sir, I think they've been infiltrating Coalition space for decades." The realization hit like a physical blow. While the Coalition had been focused on the obvious threat of human expansion, small groups of humans had been quietly spreading throughout alien territory. Refugees, traders, researchers, all of them potential sleeper agents. Admiral Carter's transmission reached its climax as she revealed the final truth. "You wanted to cage us in our home system. You wanted to control our expansion and monitor our progress, but you never asked the right question. Where are the humans who aren't in the colonies you can see?" Across Coalition space, humans who had lived quietly among alien populations for years received coded signals. The scattered refugees, the immigrant communities, the mixed species research teams, all of them had been waiting for this moment. Commander Tom Bradley, posing as a mining engineer on a Cormax industrial world, activated the charges he'd spent 5 years carefully placing throughout the planet's critical infrastructure. Similar scenes played out on hundreds of worlds as humanity's hidden network revealed itself. "The colonies were just the obvious targets," Admiral Carter continued. "The real infiltration happened while you were watching the wrong places. Every major coalition world now has humans in position to cripple your infrastructure from within." Admiral Thektar's empire wasn't just under attack from artificial black holes. It was being systematically destroyed from inside by an enemy that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. The war the Coalition thought they were fighting had never existed. The real war was a carefully orchestrated campaign that had been 50 years in the making, and humanity had just revealed that they'd already won. The gravitational waves reached Coalition space exactly 72 hours after the artificial black holes began forming. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of her hidden fleet command ship, watching long-range sensors track the destruction spreading across the galaxy. What had started as localized gravitational anomalies was now affecting entire sectors of space. "The disruption pattern is following our models perfectly," reported her science officer. "Coalition trade routes are collapsing faster than they can adapt." Maria nodded grimly. "Broadcast the coordinates to all human vessels. Our people need to know which areas to avoid." Meanwhile, Admiral Thektar watched his empire crumble from the bridge of his flagship. Reports flooded in from across Coalition space as the gravitational chaos spread like a plague. "The Centauri trade hub is gone," reported his communications officer. "The gravitational waves destabilized their space station. Over 2 million Coalition citizens are missing." "What about the hyperspace routes?" Thektar demanded. 70% of our primary lanes are unusable. The gravitational distortions are making hyperspace jumps too dangerous to attempt." The reptilian admiral's claws scraped against his command chair as he processed the scope of the disaster. The Coalition had built their civilization around carefully, maintained trade networks and communication systems. Humanity had just destroyed the foundation of galactic society in a single coordinated strike. But the gravitational weapons were only the beginning. General Tom Bradley had spent 8 years working as a maintenance engineer on the Vorthak homeworld. He looked like any other human refugee who had fled the oppressive policies of Earth's government years ago. The Vorthak had welcomed him as proof that not all humans supported their species' aggressive expansion. They had no idea he was one of humanity's most experienced sabotage specialists. "All teams execute Phase 4, he whispered into a concealed communicator as alarms began wailing across the planet's industrial sector. Tom's charges detonated simultaneously across the Vorthak homeworld's primary manufacturing centers. Power grids failed in cascading blackouts. Water treatment facilities shut down. Transportation networks ground to a halt as computer systems crashed from precisely placed electromagnetic pulses. Similar scenes played out across hundreds of Coalition worlds. Humans who had lived quietly among alien populations for decades revealed their true purpose. The refugees, the immigrants, the mixed species families, all of them activated sabotage plans that had been years in the making. On the Cormax industrial world of Xerion 5, mining engineer Danny Miller completed his mission by destroying the planet's primary antimatter production facility. The explosion was visible from orbit, and the loss of antimatter supplies would cripple Coalition fleet operations for months. Admiral Thektar received the reports with growing horror. "How many of our worlds are affected?" 317 confirmed attacks so far, his intelligence officer replied. "Critical infrastructure is failing across the Empire. Power, communications, transportation, manufacturing, they're hitting everything at once." "Impossible. We monitored human movements for decades. These can't all be sleeper agents." But they were. Humanity had played the longest game in galactic history, sending their people into Coalition space not as conquerors, but as ordinary citizens seeking new lives. The aliens had welcomed them, employed them, trusted them with critical positions in their society. Captain Steve Parker monitored the chaos from his observation vessel. His mission was to document the collapse of Coalition civilization and broadcast the results to scattered human fleets across the galaxy. "The Zilani Federation is reporting complete communication breakdown with their outer colonies," he announced to Admiral Carter through quantum entanglement communicators. "The Cormax Empire has declared martial law, but they don't have enough functioning ships to enforce it." Admiral Carter watched the reports from her command vessel, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. "How many Coalition civilians are affected?" "Billions," Steve replied. "But the sabotage teams are focusing on infrastructure, not population centers. Casualties are minimal, but their entire civilization is grinding to a halt." This had always been humanity's plan. Not genocide, but systematic paralysis. Make the Coalition too weak to threaten anyone, while keeping collateral damage to a minimum. Dr. Alan Rogers continued monitoring the gravitational effects from his bunker on Luna Base. The artificial black holes were stable and growing slowly, creating permanent dead zones in space that would serve as barriers between human territory and Coalition space. "The gravitational barriers are forming as designed," he reported. "Any species that tries to cross them will face the same fate as the Coalition fleets." But the most devastating blow to Coalition morale came from an unexpected source. Commander E1 Beth Williams had spent 6 years posing as a diplomatic aide in the Coalition capital. Her access to high-level communications allowed her to monitor internal discussions between member species. "They're turning on each other," she reported to Admiral Carter. "The Vorthak are blaming the Zilani for underestimating humanity. The Cormax are withdrawing from Coalition space to protect their homeworld. The alliance is fracturing." Admiral Thektar discovered this himself as emergency council sessions devolved into accusations and threats. Species that had been allies for centuries were now pointing claws, tentacles, and appendages at each other. "The humans couldn't have infiltrated our space without inside help," accused the Cormax representative. "Someone provided them with intelligence and access." "Ridiculous," hissed the Zilani ambassador. "Your security was always inadequate. Don't blame us for your failures." The Vorthak Empire, suffering the worst damage due to their role as Coalition leaders, found themselves isolated as former allies abandoned the sinking ship of their alliance. Captain Ryan Blake received orders to begin the final phase of Operation Last Stand. His fleet, hidden in deep space for months, finally revealed itself as Coalition forces struggled to maintain order. "All ships begin humanitarian operations," he broadcast to his captains. "Priority goes to civilian evacuations and medical aid." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Humanity, having just destroyed the Coalition's ability to wage war, was now offering to help rescue the survivors. General Tom Bradley coordinated these relief efforts from his position on the Vorthak homeworld. "We're offering emergency supplies and evacuation assistance to any Coalition civilians who need it," he announced through hijacked communication networks. The message was clear. Humanity didn't want to rule the galaxy. They just wanted to ensure no one could cage them again. Admiral Thektar faced the ultimate humiliation when a human medical ship arrived at his damaged flagship, offering to treat wounded Coalition personnel. The same species he had tried to exterminate was now saving his people's lives. "Why?" he asked Admiral Carter during a direct communication. Why help us after what we tried to do? Carter's response was simple but profound. Because that's who we are. We didn't want this war, Admiral. You forced it on us. But now that it's over, we're going back to being human. And humans help people who need help. The Coalition fleet began surrendering, not because they were defeated in battle, but because they had nothing left to fight with. Their infrastructure was ruined, their alliance was broken, and their enemy was offering mercy instead of revenge. As Coalition space burned with the fires of collapsed civilization, scattered human fleets emerged from hiding to begin the galaxy's strangest liberation, freeing the oppressors from the consequences of their own actions. 5 years later, Captain Danny Miller piloted his patrol ship through the ruins of what had once been Coalition space. The Freedom's Echo was one of hundreds of human vessels that now roamed the galaxy, appearing wherever desperate people needed help. They weren't conquering or claiming territory. They simply showed up, provided aid, and disappeared back into the darkness between stars. "Captain," called his communications officer, "we're receiving a distress signal from the Vorthak system." Danny checked his star charts. The Vorthak homeworld had become a shadow of its former self since the infrastructure collapse. Most of the population lived in refugee camps now, dependent on aid shipments to survive. "Set course for Vorthak Prime," he ordered. "Let's see what they need." What they found was a small convoy of Vorthak ships under attack by raiders. The attackers were Zilani pirates, taking advantage of the chaos that had consumed the galaxy since the Coalition's fall. "This is Captain Miller of the human vessel Freedom's Echo," Danny broadcast to both groups. "Cease hostilities immediately." The Zilani pirates laughed over the communication channel. "One human ship against our entire squadron? You must be joking." They had clearly forgotten what humans were capable of. 5 minutes later, the pirate ships were disabled and drifting in space. Danny's crew beamed emergency supplies to their crews while escorting the Vorthak convoy to safety. The lead Vorthak ship commander was an old reptilian named Sektar, who had once served under Admiral Thektar during the war. "Why did you help us?" Sektar asked during the post-rescue communication. "We tried to exterminate your species." "That was 5 years ago," Danny replied simply. "Today you needed help and we were here to give it." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out daily. Humanity had evolved into something unprecedented, a nomadic civilization that appeared wherever they were needed, but could never be pinned down or controlled. Admiral Lisa Carter, now gray-haired and bearing the scars of countless battles, commanded the human fleet from her mobile headquarters. The ship had no name and no fixed location, moving constantly through deep space. "Report from Sector 7, announced her aide, Colonel Beth Williams. "The Cormax mining colonies are requesting assistance with their food distribution system." "Send the relief convoy," Carter ordered. "What about the Zilani Federation?" "Still rebuilding their government. They've requested human observers for their peace negotiations with the breakaway colonies." Carter nodded. This was humanity's new role in the galaxy, the neutral party that everyone trusted because they wanted nothing for themselves. The transformation hadn't been easy. In the immediate aftermath of the Coalition's collapse, many human leaders had argued for claiming territory and establishing a proper empire. Carter and President Sullivan had refused. "The moment we start taking worlds for ourselves," Carter had argued, "we become just another threat that someone will need to destroy. Our strength comes from having no fixed position to attack." Dr. Alan Rogers, now running a mobile research station that studied the long-term effects of the artificial black holes, agreed with this approach. "The gravitational barriers we created will keep aggressive species separated for centuries," he reported during a fleet-wide conference. "But barriers work both ways. We can't expand in the traditional sense either." "Good," Carter replied. "Expansion is what got us into trouble in the first place." Instead, humanity had embraced a different model. Their population was spread across thousands of ships, stations, and temporary settlements that could move at a moment's notice. They maintained no permanent borders, claimed no fixed territories, and answered to no central government that aliens could negotiate with or threaten. Captain Steve Parker had become something of a legend among the scattered human fleets. His ship, the Wandering Star, specialized in first contact with newly discovered species. Today he was approaching a system where long-range sensors had detected signs of early space travel. A young species called the Cathani had just achieved faster-than-light communication and were sending their first messages into the galaxy. "Remember," Steve told his crew as they prepared to make contact, "we're not here to conquer or convert. We're here to say hello and offer friendship." The Cathani were a peaceful aquatic species, similar to Earth's dolphins but with opposable appendages. Their first message to the galaxy was a simple greeting. "Hello, stars. We are the Cathani. We come in peace." Steve smiled as he recorded humanity's response. "Hello, Cathani. We are humans. We also come in peace. Would you like to be friends?" It was a far cry from the ultimatums and threats that had once characterized galactic diplomacy. Meanwhile, on the ruins of Earth, a monument had been erected at the site of the old United Nations building. The planet was still largely uninhabitable due to coalition bombardment, but automated systems maintained the memorial and its continuous broadcast. Archaeologist Kelly Brooks was one of the few humans who visited the dead world regularly. Her job was to preserve humanity's history and ensure the lessons of the war were never forgotten. The monument's message played continuously in hundreds of languages. "We gave you every chance for peace. We offered cooperation, trade, and friendship. You chose to make us your enemy. This is what human enemies look like. Choose more wisely with whoever you meet next." Below the main message, a smaller inscription had been added. "But remember also, this is what human friends look like. We would rather heal than harm, build than destroy, create than conquer. The choice was yours then. The choice is yours now." Kelly often brought alien visitors to see the monument. Many came seeking to understand how humanity had achieved such a complete victory without becoming the new galactic oppressors. "The secret," she would tell them, "is that we never wanted to win. We just wanted to be free." Admiral Thektar had become one of the monument's most frequent visitors. The former coalition commander now worked with human relief organizations, helping to coordinate aid to the scattered remnants of his former empire. "I still don't understand," he confessed to Kelly during one visit. "You had us completely defeated. You could have ruled the galaxy." Kelly looked out at the ruins of New York City, where metal beams reached toward the sky like skeletal fingers. "Rule what?" she asked. "A galaxy full of people who hate and fear us. That's not victory, Admiral. That's just a bigger prison." The Cathani became humanity's first new allies in the post-coalition galaxy. Their peaceful nature and genuine desire for friendship reminded humans why they had fought to preserve their freedom in the first place. Other species began reaching out as well. The galaxy was slowly healing from the wounds of the coalition war, and many civilizations were discovering that humans made better friends than enemies. Captain Maria Santos commanded one of the newest human vessels, the Second Chance. Her mission was to help rebuild damaged worlds and restore trade networks that had been disrupted by the artificial black holes. "It's ironic," she commented to her crew as they delivered medical supplies to a former coalition world. "We destroyed their civilization to save ourselves, and now we're helping them rebuild it." "Maybe that's the point," replied her first officer. "We're showing them there's a better way." As the years passed, humanity's nomadic civilization became a stabilizing force in galactic politics. They had no territory to defend, no resources to hoard, no throne to protect. They could afford to be truly neutral because they had nothing to gain from taking sides. Young species throughout the galaxy began to learn about the humans through stories and legends. They heard about the species that had turned their own destruction into the galaxy's salvation, and many chose to model their own development on human principles of freedom and cooperation. Admiral Carter, now in her 70s, looked out at the stars from her command ship and smiled. Humanity had lost their homeworld and their fixed place in the galaxy, but they had gained something far more valuable: the respect and friendship of countless species who knew they could trust humans to keep their word. The war that was supposed to end humanity had instead transformed them into exactly what the galaxy needed: a people with the power to destroy but the wisdom to heal instead. In the end, the coalition had been right about one thing: humanity was dangerous. But they had been wrong about what made them dangerous. It wasn't their technology or their adaptability that posed the greatest threat. It was their stubborn refusal to stay down when someone tried to keep them caged.